Yo, what is up, everyone? You're about to watch our complete Getting Started with Power BI course. We wanted to make it available here on YouTube for everyone, but it's also available in the Cube as a full course experience with quizzes, a certificate of completion, and a whole bunch of other resources. But if you're happy staying here on YouTube, sit back, kick your feet up, and enjoy the show. Welcome to the Cube. If Power BI feels big when you're brand new, this course is your map. We're going to lay out the full path from the raw data, regardless of its source, to a report someone can actually use. Let's define the workflow in plain English. First, you get data in Power BI from files, from databases, online sources. It's a plethora of sources. Second, you shape and model that data so table relationships and calculations make sense. Third, you build visuals. That's what everybody wants to do. That answers the business questions. Last, you publish your beautiful reports and data models so you can share them with other people so that they can consume them and use them. For beginners, and this is what we think, the biggest mistake is trying to design the perfect report, the perfect visuals before the data is even ready. In practice, report quality is decided much earlier. If source tables are messy, if data types are wrong, or if relationships are unclear, the visual layer becomes so frustrating. That's why this course starts with getting and preparing data before we spend real time polishing and finalizing reports. Another beginner trap is treating Power BI as one giant feature list. Don't learn it like a list. Learn it like a pipeline. First, ask, where am I at right now? Am I connecting to data? Am I cleansing data? Am I modeling data? Or communicating insight? That framing helps you choose the next step instead of jumping around randomly through panes and menus. A quick orientation on tools. Power BI Desktop is where you build. The service is where you publish, refresh, and share with everyone. Power Query handles the transformation and shaping of the data. The model view handles relationships and hierarchies. The DAX query view is where you create measures and run queries. The report canvas handles all the visuals. These boundaries are very simple, but once you lock them in, Power BI stops feeling so big and mysterious. So instead of all this talking, let's head over to my laptop and let me show you the data that we're going to work with. So we're going to use the financial file so that same data follows us through the course. And this is the sample data that's provided when you build out the sample. Once we get more into the modules, you'll see what I'm talking about. In Desktop, we'll open the table and you'll get to see all the data. But let me call out some columns really quick. You can see we have segment, country, product, discount brand, unit sold. There's lots of data here. And then we'll ground it. If you take a look, we have some government segments. We have some mid-market segments. That mix is exactly why this is a great beginning example. You can see standard transactions, discount amounts, big outliers in one place. We'll keep this same file in every module so the learning path feels like one connected bill, not 5 separate demos. But I want you to imagine this. You're asked to build your first report for monthly sales. You start with an Excel file that has orders, products, and dates, just like the file I just showed. In Desktop, you connect to the file and you quickly preview the tables. Right away, you see data values stored as text and product names with inconsistent spellings. What do? If you skip cleanup and jump to visuals, you'll spend time fighting broken totals and weird filtering behaviors. But if you follow the pipelines, you first clean and type that data, then create relationships, then build your measures and do all your business logic. Then finally, you build visuals. The same report request becomes much easier because each stage has a clear purpose. Now, imagine explaining this to your team. You don't say, I clicked around and it finally worked. You say, we connected source data, we standardized types, modeled the tables, then built visuals for revenue by month with top products. Now, that's a repeatable story. And guess what? Repeatable is what scales. In the next module, we'll start making the first build decisions that sets the quality of everything downstream. Okay, now's a good time to call this out. We're about to install Power BI Desktop and load the sample file. The sample is built in, but if you want a local download, there's a link on this module page over in the Cube. I've also got some notes and extra resources there to go along with the content. All right, back to the video. Okay, picture day one on a new report request. 10 possible data sources, limited time, and no room for random choices. This module is going to give you a practical triage approach that you can use when making these decisions. Your first decision is source selection. Power BI can connect to Excel, CSV, SQL Server, on-prem, in the cloud, web API, and lots of other sources. For beginners, start with 1 or 2 trusted sources and avoid combining everything at once. The goal is consistency first and complexity later. Second, understand the difference between import and direct query at a practical level. Import goes to the source and brings all the data into the model. And it's often easier for beginners because the behavior is more deterministic or predictable. Direct query can be valuable, but it adds a dependency on the source for performance and query folding behavior. If you're learning fundamentals, import usually gives you a cleaner and easier starting point. Third, and a really important aspect, set refresh expectations early. Data rarely stays static, so think about update cadence now, not after you publish a report. Is daily refresh enough? Do stakeholders expect near real-time data? Even if you don't configure every advanced refresh setting just yet, having this conversation, talking to people, keeps your model and visuals aligned with the business's reality. Another key beginner habit is naming and documenting source queries clearly. Query 1 and sheet 2 becomes confusing really quickly. Use names like sales orders or products so you know exactly what each table represents. Small discipline now saves so many hours later. Trust me from experience. One practical tip, validate row counts during ingestion. If your source has 120,000 rows and Power BI only loads, let's say 98,000 of them, pause, take a beat, and investigate before moving forward. Catching ingestion mismatches early protects everything downstream. So, you know how we like to do? Enough of all this talk. It's time to get started. Let's head over to my laptop. Okay, to get started, you need Power BI Desktop, and you can go to the Power BI download page and download it from here. But this is not the most efficient way to do it. My suggestion is you go to the Microsoft Store, you search for Power BI, you choose Power BI Desktop, and you click download because Power BI gets updated every month. And if you download it from the store, it's automatically updated. If you get it from the download page, you have to do it manually, and that's just not efficient. Once you get it downloaded, you can open it from the store. You can go search for it in the search box. I already have it open, and so you can get it open. Once it opens, it'll look just like this. Choose blank report. There's lots to navigate and discover here. We'll cover these things in other courses and in other modules. What we're going to do is we're going to get started by getting some data. Now, the sample data, you can get the sample data simply by clicking use sample and load the sample data. We're not going to do that. We're going to do this the right way, the way that people do this in the real world. So I can just click Excel. That's simple. I can choose Get Data and choose Excel. But I'm going to go to More because I want to show you all the sources that are available in Power BI Desktop. I'm going to click New, and you can see that I can connect to JSON files. I can connect to Amazon Redshift. I can connect to a Fabric data warehouse, or I can connect to Excel. There's lots of other different sources. Go and explore them. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Excel. I'm going to click Browse. I'm going to go to the location where my financial sample Excel file is saved. I'm going to click Open. Then I'm going to click Next. When I click Next, you'll see I'm presented with 2 different options. And so the sample file has a table created in it named Financials, and that's why you'll see this here. If I didn't have a table created, it would just be whatever the name of the sheet is. I'm going to go ahead and choose Financials. And you may be tempted to click Load. Don't do it. Click the drop down and click Transform Data. This is going to open up the Power Query window. This is where you can get intimate with your data. This is where you can clean and transform and just massage the data. And you can see, if you remember the Excel spreadsheet, it's the exact same data. We're going to take it to another level. What we're going to do is we're going to do one simple transformation right here, and that's rename sales to net sales. And you can do other transformations. I could change data types. I can remove columns. I can do all types of things. The thing I want to point out in this module is every transformation that I do is tracked here in applied steps. And as more and more data is added, that data goes through every step here in applied steps. There's lots to explore here, and we definitely will get to them in later modules. Clean source choices and clear refresh expectations set up everything that comes next. The next module is where we turn these loaded tables into analysis-ready data using more Power Query transforms besides a simple rename. A common beginner surprise is seeing totals shift unexpectedly after the refresh. This module is about building repeatable transformation steps so your numbers stay stable cycle after cycle, refresh after refresh. Power Query is not just cleanup. It's where you build trust in your data set. If data types are wrong, if dates are inconsistent, or text values are messy, your model and visuals will hallucinate. No, they'll just plain out lie to you, right? I like to say numbers don't lie. People do. But in this case, visuals do. So this module is about creating reliable inputs before relationships and measures. Start with the essentials. Remove columns you don't need, rename columns to business-friendly names, set correct data types explicitly, especially for dates, currency, and whole numbers. Don't assume that the automatic detection always gets everything right. Sometimes it doesn't. Then handle quality issues you can see immediately. Trim spaces, standardize casing, and replace obvious null issues where appropriate. Beginners often skip this because they want to get to visuals quickly. They want to start designing the pretty reports. But this step is what prevents embarrassing chart errors much later. One important habit. Think in repeatable transformation steps, not manual fixes. Every applied step in Power Query is recorded. That means when new data arrives, your cleanup logic reruns automatically. You're not just fixing today's file, you're defining a process. All the new data that comes in will go through that same process. Also, this is important. Keep transformation order intentional. Type conversions often work better after basic cleanup, and split merge operations are safer once null handling is consistent. You don't need perfect sequencing on day one, but you should understand that order can change outcomes. So, you know how we like to do? Enough of all this talking. Let's do what? Let's head over to my laptop. Back in Power Query from Module 2, we're going to do just a little bit of cleanup. And so if we go to unit sold, you can see that it's a decimal. I'm going to switch that to a whole number because we don't sell fractions of units. And then on segment, what I want to do is I want all this to be uppercase. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go to transform, and you'll see uppercase, and it automatically makes it uppercase. And you can see every time I do something here, it actually adds a step. And then something else that I know is that the product Montana was discontinued. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to filter that out because we don't need that anymore. We're just cleaning up our data. And then also, I don't need month to be named month name. Everybody knows it's just month, just like that. And you can see every time I did something, all the steps, everything was applied. So if I want to undo something, I can uncheck it. If I click the gear, it'll open up the gear and I can go and change anything there. So many things, so many capabilities built right into the query editor. When I'm done, all I need to do is click close and apply, and this data will get loaded into my model. So Power Query gives you consistent, repeatable preparation so your model starts on a solid ground. In the next module, we'll use this clean data to build a basic star schema model and some simple DAX measures. All right, I know people want the DAX code. Over on the Cube page, I've got my notes and code blocks ready for you to copy. I also included a video on star schemas that'll really help tie this together if you wanted to go just a little bit deeper. And I know that modeling video is a quick detour, but it'll help cut through the noise and give you the resources that you need when you need them. All right, let's get back to it. Now we move from prepared tables to a real model. This is where report behavior becomes either clear and predictable or confusing to debug. A beginner-friendly Power BI model usually follows a star schema pattern. You have the fact table in the center, and then you have dimensions all around it. Your fact table holds transactions like sales rows. Dimension holds descriptive context like product, date, and region. This structure makes filtering and aggregation somewhat predictable, more predictable. Relationships are the engine. If relationships are missing or ambiguous, Your visuals show confusing results. Focus on one-to-many relationships from dimension to fact when possible, and verify the direction of the filter row. If a number looks wrong in a visual, a relationship design is one of the first places that I typically will inspect or take a look at. Then add foundational DAX measures and start simple, especially if you've never worked with DAX before. Start with things like total sales, total orders, maybe average order value. Measures let you centralize your business logic so every visual uses the same definitions. Avoid calculated columns for everything by default, if you can. Use measures for aggregations that should respond to filters. If you find yourself and you need calculated columns, try to do them in Power Query, or if you have access to the source, go back to the source and do those calculated columns. They can kind of hide performance problems if you don't know what you're doing. Naming also matters. If your model has fields called column 1 and table 3, report building slows down and mistakes increase. Use clear names that business users recognize. If your names are off, head back over into Power Query and fix those names like we did in the previous module. As you build, test relationships with quick sanity checks. Slice total sales by product category, then by month, then by customer. If totals look off in one cut but not another, that usually points to bad relationship configurations or key quality issues. So, you know what we like to do? Enough of all this talking. Let's head over to my laptop. In Power Query, if you've been following along, if you click the little drop down here, you'll get some options, right? Apply, close. We're going to choose close and apply. And what it's going to do, because this is import, it's bringing all that data directly into the model. And so if we go to the model view, you'll see that we have a single table. And remember, I started out talking about star schemas. And to be honest, if you have flat data and it's not a large volume of data, you probably can work with a single table. But I want to give you a sense of what working with relationships and a star schema looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my table view and I'm going to add a new table and I'm going to call it date equals. And we're going to write a little bit of DAX here. We're going to call this one calendar. We're going to call it calendar auto. And we don't have a fiscal month year. And I don't want to get too complicated. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add just 2 columns to this. I'm going to add year. There's a logical date column whenever you use this function, and I'm going to explain what these are. And then I'm going to add month, and I know we have these already, but I want to just show you how this works. Format. And then month num. And we're going to say month. And this is our logical column. Okay. And close it out. So if you take a look at this calendar auto is going to search every date in your model and is going to create a distinct list of dates, and it's going to fill in the gaps if there's any gaps. One from the minimum date to the maximum date. You'll get that explicit list. And that's where this date column comes from. Okay. And then I've wrapped this in another function that creates a table. But what I'm saying is calendar auto produces a single column table with just a list of dates. So I'm going to add columns to this calendar auto, and I'm adding a year column, a month column, and a month number column. And so if I click the check, what you'll see is, well, here's my entire table. Okay. And this DAX will be available for you if you want to follow along. And then all I need to do is go back to the relationship view. And so I have a date here and a date there. I'm going to click this date and drag it on top of that date. And it opens up my new relationship window and it establishes my relationship. The table on the top is on the one side and the table on the bottom is on the many side. So if I click save, you'll see it establishes my relationship, my one-to-many relationship. Another thing you want to do is you see these little sums here. What I like to do is turn those off. Now, you could turn those off explicitly in your model. We're not going to do that for now. I can go for each individual one and choose for a particular column under advanced. We're going to go to do not summarize and watch this. It's going to turn it off. And I'll do the same thing for this one. And then what I also want to do is month. I want to sort it by month number. By default, it's going to sort alphabetically, but I want it to sort it by month number. So I'm going to choose month. And so once I have my relationship and my model done, I'm going to add some measures. And I'm going to do this in a very simple way. I'm going to click the table. I'm going to choose new measure. And I have some snippets that I'm going to use. So you don't have to watch me write all this code. And then we're going to add another one. This one's going to be called total profit. equals sum profit, just like that. Not too difficult. And then we're going to add one more. Actually, we're going to add two more. New measure, profit margin percent. And I'm showing this one because there's a function called divide, and it handles blanks and it handles zeros in the denominator for you. And so you can use regular, the regular slash to do the divide, but I much prefer to do it this way because it's a more elegant and consistent solution in Power BI. There we go. And as I create those measures, I didn't do this, but I can go and format these. Like I want this one to be a percent with 2 decimal places. If I click this one, I want to make this one a currency. And then I can do the same thing for total profit. I can make it a currency. And then I'm going to add one more measure just to do some diagnostic and maybe do something fun when we start designing the report. So I'm going to choose new measure again. And this is what I'm going to call discount impact percent. And then I'm going to say divide this by, watch what I do here, sum of discounts, right? So I'm using a function in a function. I'll talk about this in another class where I go deeper into DAX, okay? So then remember, we're going to make this a percentage. Go to measure tools and make this a percentage. So now if I go over to the model view, what I see is I have my relationship. If I go to the model, I have my measures, all 4 of my measures here, and my model's shaping up to do some serious reporting. The business logic I put in the measures, the relationships that I've created, that consistency turns model work into faster iteration and fewer downstream corrections. In the next module, we're going to turn this model into report pages that communicate insights and can be shared in the service. Now you have clean data and a usable model. The final step is where the work becomes visible and valuable to the real users. And honestly, the place that everybody wants to go and the thing that everybody wants to do, build a report. So a good report design starts with questions, not chart types. Before placing visuals, define what decisions the audience needs to make. If the audience is sales leadership, they likely need trend, target comparison, and top to bottom contributions. The question first approach prevents report clutter. Then choose visual types with intent. Use line charts for trends over time, bar charts for category comparison, cards for KPIs, and tables when detailed records are necessary. Don't use 5 visual types when 2 will communicate better. Simpler layouts are easier to read and maintain. Layout is also communication. Keep related visuals together. Use clear titles that answer what am I looking at, include slices that are useful, but avoid overwhelming users with every field. A clean page with obvious interaction paths will outperform a page full of competing visuals. After visual design, publish to Power BI service and validate sharing. Confirm who can access the report, whether refresh works, and whether users understand how to interact with the filter and drill pads. A report is only successful when people can use it without constant help. Bring, Patrick. How do I do this? No, that's not what you want. Adoption is a design metric. If users keep exporting to Excel because they cannot find answers quickly, the report needs refinement. Watch how people interact, simplify where they hesitate, and use feedback to improve the report in small iterations. So, you know how we like to do? Enough of all this talking. Let's go build a report. Let's head over to my laptop. Back in our model, back in Power BI, we're going to switch to the report view. And we're going to open up the data canvas and the visual canvas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a card because I'm going to add some KPIs to this. Watch, I'm going to add the 3 measures that I created. And let's collapse this. Total net sales, total profit, and profit margin. So now we have our cards, nice, tight, and created, right? Just a simple little report. The thing that you notice is that looks like they're summed up. They're like in these aggregates at millions, and I want them to show the actual value. So if I go to the format pane, choose that visual, and then I go to call out. And so you can see right now it's on net sales. I can switch it, but I'm going to keep it net sales, and I'm going to go to value, and I'm going to change the display units to none. And I'm going to repeat those steps because look at that, right? The decimal place, and then I'm going to set my decimal place to 2. And then I'm going to do that for total profit. Also, change display units to none, and set my display value to 2. Now, what I should have done with my measures, to be honest, is click on measures and you see it's contextual. I like how the menu is contextual. If I click on a measure, go to measure tools, you see auto. I switch that to 2, and the same thing for total profit. Switch that to 2. That way it's consistent across all my visuals, and you'll see that as I continue to design. And maybe I want to make the headers a little larger. So if I go back to format, and I think this is in the call out, go to the label, and we'll increase this to maybe 16, right? So you can see how it does it for that particular one. I probably should have just said do it for all, and then just say 16. There we go. Makes that a little larger. So now I have my KPIs set up, and I can add titles and things like that, but we're not going to iterate through that right now. The next thing I want to do is I want to see what's the trend for my net sales. So I'm going to use a line chart for that. So I get my line chart here, and I'm going to go here and choose total net sales. And I want to see that by month. And now this is going to show us if that relationship is working. So if I choose month, look at there, right? Look at there. You can see a nice trend line, and I can continue to format this out more. I can make the labels here on this axis bigger. I can do things like that. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to show profit by country. And so I'm going to do that with a column chart. So I'm going to bring my column chart right here, expand this out, and then I'm going to go find country. So we have country, and then we're going to use, what did I say? Profit. So you can see how my report is shaping up. If I collapse all the panes, we'll get a little more real estate, but I can go and increase fonts and do things like this. If I do this, I can do a lasso effect, and I can move all of them. Let's do one more thing. Let's create a table. So I'm going to create a table right here, and I'm going to add some columns to my table. And so what we're going to do, we're going to add segment. We're going to add country. Where's country at? We're going to add segment, country, product, and discount brand. And then I'm going to add a couple of measures, net sales and total profit. So now I can see these things. But if I start sorting total profit, you can see that some people had negative profit. And maybe I want to ignore the negative profit ones. And I can increase the font and size of all these things if I want to. But I'm going to add a visual filter. And so on the profit, I'm going to expand this out, and I'm going to say greater than 0, because that's all I care about here. And I click apply. So now if I look, you'll see that everything is greater than 0, and it's only the ones with the profit. Finally, I want to filter the entire report by segment. So I'm going to grab this, drop this right here. I'm going to make this a slicer. So I'm going to go here and use the visuals here and make this a simple slicer. And you can set settings for this. So I'm going to go to the visual level settings. I'm going to go to my slicer settings and make this a vertical list so I can see all of them. And now watch what happens to the visuals when I start switching across, right? It's pretty nice. Everything is interactive. Everything switches. Now that the report is created, we're going to do what everybody wants to do once they create their beautiful report. Share it with everyone. So what you're going to do is make sure home is selected in the ribbon, go all the way to the right and find that publish button. So we're going to go ahead and click publish. And I created a workspace in advance called financials. We're going to go ahead and choose financials. You can see it's empty right now. I'm going to click select. And in a few short seconds, watch what's going to happen right here. Success. My report is published. Now you can click the link right here, and it's going to open the report automatically. Or if you go to the service, we'll talk about the service more in other courses in the Cube. You can see now that I have my data set and I have my report. I'm going to go ahead and open my report. And so you can see my report. My report opens. I can click different items and you can see it automatically will slice and filter. So make sure everything works. Now, to share this report, you got a couple of ways. I can click share right here. I click share. I can share this with individual people or groups. I can copy links. I can do different things. I can send it in Teams. Or if I go back to the workspace, I can go to manage access and I can add people here. What I suggest you do is you add groups or individual people here and you make them viewers. That will give them access to all the reports in the workspace. If you use the share button, it only gives them access to that individual item. Or what you can do is you can create an app. And so once you create an app, you give it a name, we give it a description. We call this financials. And then you go to content. And what I'm going to do is click add content. I'm going to choose my report and click add. And then you can click add an audience. If you want to have different views for different people, you can see your report right here. And then finally, you can publish the app. You have multiple ways and multiple choices to do this. Using the individual share button can be difficult because you have to share that, multiple times. You can give them access to the content directly in the workspace. And so if you have multiple reports, you add them as viewers, they can see everything in that workspace. If you want to filter it down so they can only see individual items, you create an app. Keep this in your memory. Connect, shape, model, visualize, and then share. Okay, that wraps up this course and gives you a bit of a preview of the cube. But don't let the conversation stop here. Join our community and share what you're working on, where you're stuck, and where we could lend some help. But you know how we like to do? Enough of all this talking. Let's head over to the cube.